mastered the art of looking successful while being completely broke. They drive cars they can't afford to, jobs they don't like to, buy things they don't need. And they call this winning. It's not winning. It's slow-motion bankruptcy with excellent credit scores. Let me be clear about what I mean by money traps. These aren't accidents. They're not bad luck. They're predictable psychological mistakes that the middle class makes repeatedly, generation after generation. And the financial industry has built entire business models around exploiting these mistakes. The first trap is the biggest one. The middle class treats their primary residence as their greatest investment. That's not an investment. That's an emotional liability with property taxes. When I was young, a house was shelter. You bought what you could afford, paid it off quickly, and moved on with your life. Today, people stretch themselves to buy the maximum house the bank will approve. They think they're building equity. They're really building stress. Here's the mathematics nobody wants to face. If you buy a $500,000 house with a 30-year mortgage at 5% interest, you'll pay nearly twice that amount over the life of the loan. That's $450,000 in interest alone. Money that could have been invested in productive assets generating returns. Instead, it went to a bank. The middle class calls this smart borrowing. I call it financial self-harm. But it gets worse. That house demands constant feeding, property taxes that rise every year, insurance that increases mysteriously, maintenance that never ends. The roof needs replacing, the furnace dies, the kitchen looks dated. Every year, there's another $5,000 or $10,000 walking out the door. None of that shows up in your home value calculations. You're told your house appreciated 3% annually. Congratulations, inflation was 3%. You broke even while paying interest and maintenance. That's not wealth creation, that's a treadmill with a mortgage. Now, owning a home can make sense if you buy conservatively in an area you'll stay in long term at a price that doesn't strain your finances. But that's not how the middle class buys. They buy emotionally. They buy for status. They buy the maximum they can borrow because the realtor and the mortgage broker both profit when you overpay. Nobody in that transaction is incentivized to tell you the truth, which is that you're about to anchor yourself to 30 years of payments that will limit every other financial decision you make. I've watched this pattern destroy financial flexibility for decades. People in their 30s buy houses they can barely afford. By their 40s, they're trapped. They can't switch careers because they need the income. They can't move for opportunities because they're underwater or barely breaking even after commissions. They can't invest aggressively because every spare dollar goes to the house. That's not an asset, that's an anchor. The wealthy understand something the middle class refuses to learn. Liquidity and flexibility are worth more than square footage. They'd rather rent freedom than own captivity. But the middle class has been so thoroughly brainwashed by the real estate industry that they can't even hear this without getting defensive. They'll tell you renting is throwing money away. I'll tell you paying interest for 30 years on an overpriced house is throwing away your financial future. At least when you rent, you know exactly what you're paying. You're not gambling on appreciation that may never come. You're not responsible when the foundation cracks. You can move when opportunity knocks. That optionality is worth something, but the middle class never calculates its value because they're too busy comparing themselves to neighbors who are equally trapped. The second trap is car payments. If there's a faster way to destroy wealth than financing a depreciating asset, I haven't found it. The middle class has normalized car debt to the point where they don't even question. They finance status, and status costs them a fortune in interest and depreciation. I've met people earning $100,000 a year who have never owned a car outright. They've had a car payment every month of their adult lives. That's $500 to $700 per month that could have been invested. Over 30 years, at reasonable returns. That's $1 million they traded for the privilege of always having a new car.
Talk to your healthcare professional about Ozempic, like I did.
The wealthy buy cars differently. They buy used, they buy reliable, they buy boring. A 7-year-old luxury car costs 1/3 of a new one and does the same thing, gets you from A to B. But the middle class can't psychologically handle driving something their neighbor might consider beneath them. So they pay the stupidity tax month after month, year after year. And here's the kicker. Nobody cares what you drive except you. The people you're trying to impress aren't thinking about you at all. They're too busy trying to impress you. It's a circle of mutual delusion, and everyone's paying interest for the privilege. This a raise. They immediately increase their spending. New salary means new apartment. Promotion means new car. Bonus means vacation. The gap between income and expenses never widens. They're always spending exactly what they make, or slightly more. I've watched engineers go from earning $50,000 to $200,000 over 20 years and end up with less saved than they had at the start. How is that possible? Lifestyle inflation. At $50,000, they had roommates and drove a used car. At $200,000, they have a mortgage, car payments, private school tuition, and a wine hobby. They earn more and need more. The mathematics of wealth are simple. Wealth is the gap between what you earn and what you spend multiplied by time. If that gap is zero, no amount of time will make you wealthy. If that gap is large, even modest income compounds into substantial wealth. The middle class has this exactly backwards. They think wealth comes from earning more. It doesn't. It comes from keeping more. You can earn $500,000 and be broke if you spend $500,000. You can earn $70,000 and be wealthy if you spend $40,000 and invest the difference for 30 years. But the middle class can't do this because they've tied their identity to consumption. More income means they're successful. And successful people, in their minds, spend more. That's not success. That's a prison they're building one purchase at a time. What they should do is this. When you get a raise, pretend you didn't. Keep living on your old salary. Invest every dollar of the increase. Do that for a decade and you'll have more wealth than peers making twice your income who inflated their lifestyle every year. But that requires discipline the middle class doesn't have. They're addicted to the feeling of moving up, even though they're actually staying still. The fourth trap is consumer debt, specifically credit cards. This is where the middle class really destroys themselves. Credit cards are the most expensive money you can borrow, and the middle class borrows it to buy groceries, dinners out, and clothes they don't need. The average American has about $6,000 in credit card debt at roughly 18% interest. If you're paying the minimum, you'll be in debt for over 20 years and pay more in interest than you originally borrowed. That's not bad luck. That's mathematical certainty. The credit card companies have engineered these products to trap people who don't understand compounding. They make the minimum payment look small. They make the rewards sound valuable. They make the whole thing feel manageable. Meanwhile, you're paying 18% interest to buy things that depreciate or disappear immediately. Every dollar you spend on a credit card that you don't pay off that month is a dollar you'll actually pay 2 or 3 times by the time you're done. That's not a tool. That's a trap. The wealthy use credit cards differently. They pay the full balance every month without exception. They never pay a cent in interest. The rewards are actually free for them because they're not paying for the privilege. The middle class does the opposite. They carry balances, pay interest, and convince themselves the rewards are worth it. You're not gaming the system. The system is gaming you. Here's a simple test. If you can't pay off your credit card in full every month, you're spending more than you should. The card isn't the problem. Your spending is. But the middle class doesn't want to hear that because it means admitting they don't have their finances under control. So they keep swiping, keep carrying balances, and keep wondering why they never get ahead. The fifth trap is student loan debt. The middle class has been sold a lie that education always pays for itself. Sometimes it does, often it doesn't. But they borrowed money based on hope. It's the assumption that any degree at any price is worth it. A 20-year-old doesn't have the financial sophistication to evaluate whether borrowing $80,000 for an art history degree makes economic sense, but we let them sign the papers anyway, and then act surprised when they're drowning in debt at 30. Here's what should happen. Before borrowing a single dollar, calculate the expected income from your degree. If you're borrowing more than 1 year's expected salary, you're making a mistake. If you're borrowing for a degree with no clear career path, you're making a bigger mistake. But nobody tells 18-year-olds this because the universities get paid regardless. The lenders get paid regardless. The only person taking the risk is the student, and they won't realize it until the bills come due. I've met people in their 40s still paying student loans for degrees they're not even using. That debt has prevented them from buying homes, starting businesses, investing for retirement. They traded their 20s and 30s of financial flexibility for a credential that didn't deliver the promised returns. That's not bad luck. That's bad math accepted on faith.
Skin's all wrinkled and there's mold starting.
Here's a grape from the farmer's market. Here's the same grape from the supermarket. This one has been bred for sugar content. Why? Because we like sugar. The rule is the darker the better. This skin is actually where all the polyphenols. This is an apple today. This has no relationship to this apple.
The sixth trap is keeping up with the Joneses. This is pure psychology, and it's devastating. The middle class can't stand being perceived as less successful than their peers. So they spend money they don't have to impress people they don't like. Your neighbor buys a new car. Suddenly yours looks old even though it runs perfectly. Your coworker goes to Europe. Suddenly you feel you deserve a vacation too. Your friend remodels their kitchen. Suddenly yours looks dated. This is envy masquerading as ambition. It's the most expensive emotion you can have because it's insatiable. There's always someone with more, always someone doing better. If you're competing on consumption, you've already lost because the finish line doesn't exist. I've watched entire families destroy themselves financially trying to maintain appearances. They'll take vacations they can't afford, buy clothes they don't need, throw parties they can't justify, all because they're terrified of looking poor. Here's what they don't understand. The people they're trying to impress are doing the same thing. They're all competing in a race where everyone's going broke together. The winners are the ones who opt out entirely. The people who drive used cars and don't care what the neighbors think. The people who vacation cheaply or not at all. The people who value financial security over social perception. But the middle class can't do this. Social proof is too powerful. They'd rather be broke with approval than wealthy with judgment. That's why they'll never build real wealth. They're spending their potential fortune on other people's opinions. The seventh trap is not understanding compound interest. The middle class knows the words. They don't understand the mathematics. They don't grasp how powerful it is working for you, or how devastating it is working against you. When you save and invest, compound interest is magic. $1,000 invested at 10% annual returns becomes over $17,000 in 30 years. You contributed $1,000. Compounding generated $16,000. That's a 16-to-1 return on patience. But the middle class doesn't have patience. They can't imagine 30 years. They need results now, so they never let compounding work in their favor. Meanwhile, compound interest is working against them on every loan they have. That credit card at 18%, that car loan at 6%, that mortgage at 5%. Every one of those is compounding in the opposite direction, taking money out of their future. They're compounding poverty while they could be compounding wealth. It's the same mathematical principle. They just chose the wrong side of the equation. I've spent my entire career explaining this to people. Most don't listen. They'll hear compound interest described and nod along. Then they'll go finance a car because they don't want to wait to save up. That's not ignorance. That's choosing comfort over compound wealth. And that choice, repeated over a lifetime, is the difference between financial independence and working until you die. The 8th trap is financial illiteracy disguised as sophistication. The middle class loves complicated financial products they don't understand. Whole life insurance, annuities, variable rate mortgages, structured notes, timeshares. These products exist to extract money from people who think complexity equals sophistication. It doesn't. Complexity is usually camouflage for bad deals. Here's a rule that will save you a fortune. If you can't explain how a financial product makes money in one sentence, don't buy it. If the person selling it can't explain it simply, they either don't understand it or they're hiding something. Either way, you shouldn't buy it. The wealthy invest in things they understand. Stocks in businesses they can analyze. Real estate they can see. Bonds from entities they can evaluate. They don't need exotic products because the simple ones work. But the middle class is too proud to invest simply. They think sophisticated people need sophisticated investments, so they buy products with high fees, complex terms, and mediocre returns. The salesperson gets rich, they stay middle class. I've watched people dump money into whole life insurance that returns maybe 3% annually while paying massive commissions to the agent. They don't make you feel special. Whole life insurance comes with a presentation and a handshake. The middle class confuses the they're inversely related. The worse the investment, the better the sales pitch. Bill variable. The 12th trap is paying for brand names. The middle class confuses brand loyalty with intelligence. They'll pay twice as much for the same product with a different logo. Why? Status. They want to signal they can afford the good stuff. But the good stuff is often identical to the cheap stuff with better marketing. I'm not saying quality doesn't matter. It does. Time, quality. You're paying for a story, for a feeling, for the illusion that you're the kind of person who buys this brand. That's expensive delusion. A $2,000 handbag doesn't hold your belongings better than a $100 one. It just announces you spent $2,000. To most people, that looks foolish, not successful. The wealthy understand this. They buy quality when it matters. They don't care about brands when they don't. They'll wear a $30 shirt and drive a 10-year-old car because they're not trying to impress anyone. The middle class does the opposite. They'll finance luxury to look successful while their bank account says they're broke. That's not sophistication. That's insecurity with a payment plan. The 13th trap is not understanding taxes. The middle class pays more in taxes than necessary because they don't understand the rules. They take the standard deduction. They don't maximize retirement contributions. They don't understand capital gains versus ordinary income. They just accept whatever the system takes. The wealthy study taxes because taxes take every around tax implications. They pay what they owe and not a dollar more. That's not cheating. That's literacy. The middle class thinks tax planning is for the rich, so they don't bother learning. Then they complain about paying too much. You're paying too much because you're ignorant, and ignorance is expensive. The 14th starts to market better. Later never comes because something always gets in the way. The car needs replacing. The kids need something. The house needs work. There's always a reason to postpone. Meanwhile, time passes. Compounding that could have been working for them is lost forever. You can't buy back time. A 30-year-old who invests $1,000 has something a 50-year-old investing $50,000 doesn't. 20 years of compounding. That's worth more than the initial amount. But they overvalue today, so they consume now and promise themselves they'll save. Later arrives, they're behind. And catching up is nearly impossible. The 15th and most dangerous trap is thinking they're fine. The middle class isn't desperate. They're comfortable. And that comfort is exactly why they're trapped. Car, and carrying credit card debt, and not investing, and lifestyle inflation, and keeping up with neighbors, and not understanding compound interest. Each trap alone is manageable. Combined, they're devastating. The middle class falls into all of them simultaneously, then wonders why they can't get ahead. You can't get ahead when you're doing everything wrong. The mathematics don't allow it. Here's the truth nobody wants to hear. The middle class chooses to be trapped, not consciously.
This is NASA's latest mind-blowing discovery. One spoonful of honey.
But through thousands of small decisions that prioritize comfort, status, and immediate gratification over long-term wealth, they know what they should do. They don't do it. Because doing it requires sacrifice, discipline, and delayed gratification. It requires looking less successful than their peers for decades. It requires ignoring social pressure. It requires thinking independently when everyone around them is doing the opposite. Most can't do that. All because they couldn't control themselves when it mattered. The escape is simple. Spend less than you earn. Invest the difference. Avoid debt. Ignore your neighbors. Think long term. Be patient. That's it. 6 principles. Followed consistently for decades. Anyone can do it. Almost nobody will. Because simple isn't easy. And the middle class prefers easy over effective. That's why they're middle class. That's why they'll stay middle class. And that's why, after watching this pattern for 80 years, I can tell you with certainty that financial freedom is available to anyone willing to be uncomfortable enough to achieve it. The question isn't whether the traps exist. The question is whether you're willing to avoid them. Most won't, but maybe you will. Now let me tell you about the trap within the trap. The middle class doesn't just fall into these mistakes once. They repeat them in cycles, generation after generation. Parents who made these mistakes raise children who make the same ones. Because financial wisdom isn't taught, it's caught. And if you're catching it from people who are broke, you'll learn to be broke. I've watched families repeat the same patterns for 3 generations. Grandparents who financed everything, parents who financed everything. Now the grandchildren, with access to more information than any generation in history, are financing everything. Same mistakes, different interest rates. The middle class treats financial education like it's optional. Like arithmetic and compound interest are advanced topics they don't need to understand. But you're making financial decisions every single day. You're choosing to spend or save, to borrow or wait, to invest or consume. And if you don't understand the mathematics of those choices, you're making them blind. That's not living. That's gambling. Here's what I've observed. The middle class knows more about their favorite sports team than they know about their own finances. They can recite statistics, player histories. You could have the best financial products in the world and still be broke if your behavior is terrible. Meanwhile, someone with average products and excellent behavior will become wealthy. The middle class has this backwards. They spend hours researching which credit card gives the best rewards. 0 hours examining why they're carrying a balance in the first place. That's optimizing the wrong variable. It's like rearranging deck chairs on the Titanic. Let me tell you about the retirement trap. The middle class has been sold a vision of retirement that's completely unrealistic. They think they'll work until 65, then relax for 20 years on savings they never accumulated. The mathematics don't work. If you save nothing or close to nothing for 40 years, you can't retire. You can only stop working when you run out of health. Then you'll depend on Social Security, which was never designed to be anyone's primary income. It was designed as a supplement. But the middle class treated it like a plan. That's not planning. That's hoping. Hope is not a strategy. The wealthy retire when their investments generate enough income to cover their expenses. That could be at 50, could be at 40. It's not about age. It's about mathematics. When your assets produce more than you spend, you're financially independent. Work becomes optional. The middle class never reaches this point because they never build the assets. They spend their entire working lives consuming their income. Then they're shocked when they reach 65 with nothing. That's not bad luck. That's the predictable result of predictable behavior. Here's another trap. The middle class thinks frugality is deprivation. They can't distinguish between being cheap and being intelligent. Frugality isn't about denying yourself everything. It's about spending intentionally on what matters and cutting ruthlessly on what doesn't. The wealthy are often incredibly frugal in ways that shock people. They'll fly coach, they'll use coupons, they'll drive old cars, not because they have to, because they understand that every dollar wasted on nonsense is a dollar that can't compound into wealth. The middle class sees this and calls it being cheap. They can't comprehend that someone with money would choose not to spend it, because in their minds, the purpose of money is spending. That's wrong. The purpose of money is optionality. The ability to do what you want, when you want, with whom you want. Spending money reduces optionality. Saving and investing increases it. But the middle class has this exactly backwards. Let me tell you about the insurance trap. The middle class is either dramatically underinsured or dramatically overinsured, usually both simultaneously. They'll have inadequate health insurance because they wanted to save on premiums. Then they'll have an expensive whole life insurance policy they don't need because an agent convinced them it was an investment. Insurance is not an investment. Insurance is protection against catastrophic risk. You insure what would destroy you financially. Health, disability, life insurance if others depend on your income, property and casualty. That's it. Everything else is someone selling you something you don't need. But the middle class can't evaluate this. They don't understand probability. They don't understand expected value. So they make emotional decisions. They overinsure small risks because they're afraid. They underinsure large risks because they're cheap. Both mistakes are expensive. The wealthy insure appropriately. They protect against catastrophe. They self-insure everything else. They understand that insurance companies are profitable because on average, you pay more than you receive. So they only buy it when the alternative is financial ruin. Let me address the investment trap more directly. The middle class invests emotionally. They buy when everyone's excited and prices are high. They sell when everyone's panicking and prices are low. That's the exact opposite of what creates wealth. I've watched this cycle repeat itself every decade. A bull market starts. The middle class ignores it because they're skeptical. The market rises. They start paying attention. The market rises more. Now they're interested. By the time they invest, we're near the top. Then the inevitable correction happens. Prices fall. They panic. They sell at a loss. Then they declare investing doesn't work. The problem isn't investing. The problem is emotional decision-making combined with ignorance. The wealthy invest when things look terrible, when everyone else is selling, when prices are depressed. Then they wait patiently while the middle class panics around them. Eventually, markets recover. They always have. The patient investors get wealthy, the emotional ones get wiped out. This isn't luck. This is temperament plus knowledge. The middle class has neither, so they lose in markets that are specifically designed to transfer money from the impatient to the patient. Let me tell you about the biggest trap of all. The middle class has been conditioned to believe they're doing fine as long as they're not desperate. That's an incredibly low bar. Not desperate isn't the same as successful. Not starving isn't the same as thriving. But the middle class accepts it because everyone around them is in the same situation. When everyone's trapped, the trap starts looking normal. That's the most dangerous thing. When you normalize dysfunction, you stop seeing it as a problem. The middle class looks around and sees everyone financing cars, carrying credit card debt, having no savings. So they conclude this is normal. This is how life works. It's not. This is how broke people live. The fact that most people are doing it doesn't make it smart. It makes it common. And common, in this case, leads to common results. Retirement with almost nothing. Working until you physically can't, depending on others. That's the future awaiting the middle class. Not because they had bad luck, because they made bad decisions consistently for decades. The good news is you can stop anytime. Every trap I've described can be avoided with different behavior. The bad news is most people won't change because change is uncomfortable. They'd rather be comfortable and broke than uncomfortable and wealthy. That's their choice. But it is a choice. Financial freedom isn't about luck, inheritance, or market timing. It's about making the right boring decisions consistently over a very long time. The middle class can't do this. They need excitement. They need novelty. They need to feel like they're doing something. But wealth is built by doing almost nothing, spending less than you earn, investing the difference, waiting decades. That's it. No excitement. No novelty. Just patience and discipline. And that's exactly why most people will never escape the traps. Because escaping requires becoming a different person. Someone who thinks differently. Someone who values different things. Someone who can watch their peers consume while they save. Someone who can ignore social pressure. Someone who can delay gratification for decades. The middle class isn't capable of this transformation. So they stay middle class. And their children stay middle class. And the cycle continues. But you don't have to. You can decide today to stop falling into these traps. To stop financing depreciating assets. To stop inflating your lifestyle. To stop competing with neighbors. To start investing early. To start understanding compound interest. To start thinking long term. That decision, made once and reinforced daily through action, changes everything. The path is clear. The principles are simple. The results are guaranteed if you follow through. The only question is whether you will. Most won't. But maybe you're different. Maybe you're willing to be uncomfortable now for freedom later. Maybe you're willing to look less successful than your peers for decades so you can actually be successful when it matters. Maybe you're one of the few who will escape. I hope you are. Because financial freedom is worth every sacrifice. Worth every moment of discipline. Worth every uncomfortable decision. But only you can decide if you're willing to pay that price. The traps are waiting. Will you avoid them, or will you walk right in like everyone else? That's the only question that matters. Retry Claude can make mistakes. Please double-check responses.
Copilot, make an image for my presentation. Think
saying that the family was being cold-blooded for denying her the food money, and others landing in the camp of, hey, you voted for this. I'm curious to hear all of what you guys think in those comments down below, which while you're there, be sure to smash like and subscribe. But I personally, and a little bit along the lines of this commenter, I sympathize with them if they're struggling, but at the same time, what the fuck did you expect? Alright, let's break it down from the beginning. I don't usually get my news from BuzzFeed, but I can't lie to you, I couldn't pass this up. A Facebook post from a MAGA voter on Snap is going viral after she called out her mother-in-law for refusing to lend her grocery money because she decided to vote for Donald Trump. People had a lot to say, and many users questioned the woman's decision to vote for Donald Trump, given her use of numerous government-funded programs. For some reason, I'm in a kind mood today, and BuzzFeed and Yahoo News both decided to blur this woman's photo and name, so let's just dive into the full post of what she said online. This MAGA mom writes, "I'm so anxious about this whole shutdown. My husband's veteran. I assume she means my husband's a veteran, though that is not how that is grammatically said or spelled. My husband's a veteran using his GI Bill for school, which that's affected, and we get good stamps since I'm disabled and he's in school." I'm not laughing at the disabled, I'm laughing at the fact that she can't spell. We have 2 kids. One is 2, and we're waiting to get her tested for autism. She's a picky eater. I've tried other foods, but in the end, I give up because I don't want any more screaming. My 6-month-old is starting purees. Yes, we get WIC. WIC is the food stamps benefits for women and children, but still, I don't know how we're going to pay rent, let alone our bills, and get food. I do cook everything from scratch, and I've been adding rice, beans, or noodles to stretch it out. I'm just at my wit's end, and I'm overwhelmed. Plus, we're almost out of formula. He asked his mother to buy a can until our WIC comes in. Her response was, "We voted for this." And that post apparently blew up with people in the comments jumping in and sharing a wide range of opinions. One user, who I guess found the post on Reddit, said here, they were fine when other people were going to suffer. Other users, though, sympathized with the woman, calling the mother-in-law cold-blooded for refusing to help, saying, "Cold-blooded, but I don't blame the mother-in-law." So irritating when people get exactly what they voted for and proceed to complain about it. I remember saying before the election, "I'm going to be fine, I have a stable..."
I almost didn't buy this NFL wallet, but when Black Friday hit and it was up to 42% off, I finally gave it a shot. My old leather wallet was bulky, bent out of shape, and honestly embarrassing. This one, it's slim, it holds up to 12 cards in cash, and the RFID blocking plates mean my info actually stays secure. I added the...
Guys, the Federal Reserve just made a major move with our money system, and it's not getting the attention that I think it should get. After 3 straight years of pulling money out of the economy to fight higher prices, the Fed is now officially stopping that process. They're done shrinking the money supply. And in just 10 days, December 9th, December 10th of this year, the Fed is going to meet again to decide whether they're going to cut interest rates or not. And when you put all of this together, guys, the Fed might be getting closer to turning the money printer back on. Now, this kind of change affects everything, right? Our mortgage rates, our credit card interest, our jobs, our investments, and even how far our paycheck goes every couple of weeks when we get paid, right? So let me break this down to you in plain language, okay? How the Fed prints money basically out of thin air. Here's how the money printing system really works, okay? When the Fed wants to put more money into the economy, or more money into circulation, the Fed does something called quantitative easing, or QE for short. Now, what is quantitative easing? In simple terms, QE is just more money in the system, more liquidity in the economy. Okay, so here's the process. Here's how it all happens, okay? Step 1 is this. The Fed decides, hey, we're going to add money back into the economy to stimulate the economy, right? Get things moving, get people buying, right? So the Fed prints money. Now, the second thing that happens is the Fed then takes that money and buys U.S. government bonds. The Fed buys these bonds from big banks or, huge financial companies, right? Because they're the ones who hold billions of dollars of U.S. bonds. Now, the third thing that happens is the Fed pays for those bonds with this new money that was just printed, right? And this is the part that people really don't understand. The Fed doesn't use money from a bank account, right? The Fed, they don't sell anything. The Fed doesn't raise taxes, right? The Fed just literally creates brand new digital dollars out of thin air. And that's, again, the dollars they use to buy these bonds, right? Money created from nothing. The fourth step is that the new money goes into the banks when the Fed buys the bonds with the new money. The banks, in turn, give the Fed bonds. The Fed becomes a bond holder, and they just bought money, right? The banks get that new digital cash, okay? Now, the Fed gives the banks this fresh money that didn't exist before. Now, all of a sudden, banks have way more cash on their books. And what do you think the banks now do with all this new cash? That's step 5. Banks push that money into the economy. How? Well, those banks, now that they have all this new money, they use the new cash to give credit, to fund businesses, right? To help people buy homes, buy cars, right? So bank into the economy just by buying bonds with the new money. Now, let's talk about the pandemic, because this is going to sort of illustrate this whole process, right? In 2020 and 2021, the Fed print new money. With printing new money, right? The Fed bought trillions of dollars in bonds from banks using money that they created out of thin air. And they put those bonds on their asset side of their balance. Out there in circulation, right? More when too much money, the same amount of spending. Jobs are weak. It's always a good idea to own rental property.
But seems to run good. Don't really need much more.
Sounds good.
This car has all the Z28 stuff. It's got the Z28 rear spoiler. The big giveaway is the fender vents and the front spoiler. Plus, this hood has ambitious for the 160 horsepower smog motor this would come with. But
Very solid though, like frame.
not great. Couple of aftermarket gauges. Starts right up. On. Tell this doesn't do anything. Power steering doesn't really do anything. Let's see if we can get this puppy back home to Pennsylvania. Good. Got some kind of brakes. It's grinding in the back. Alright. No door panels. No. Alright. Here we go. A little more. Okay.
What's a diag here,
It's
bud?
awful. There is a metal collar that goes around. That's like essentially the integral part of it. That's broken. Then there is a yeah, pulling it up. Right on the money, and it looks red as can be. All right.
lot of dental offices about doing their teeth in a day process. A lot of times what they mean is teeth that you wear while you're healing.
In the old way, you would
A little more, Barb.
Alright, I need some tools.
Mark me some tools, everybody.
It's a nice place to be, dude. Hey, it's a
You got it?
how
It's gotta go. It's gotta go. There she is. Fair stuff. Ripped, and when he was keeping it together with these tabs, they have this off. His we bigger steel to get this off. To the top. Feels pretty good. Fuck it. We're gonna get this. This is the plan. These are like the big heads here, the flats. I think those are getting pressed on and kind of crushed, riveted essentially. Drill through to smash the other side out, and then we'll see. There are two zero-headed fasteners we have to remove. These are left-handed drill bits. That's all they had. So if your eyes are deceiving you, they're not. Are you ready? Our advice here is Barb's hitch, and the Jeep thing you would understand. I'm starting to
Google still tracks you in incognito mode. Use DuckDuckGo, a real private browser.
have any more of those gator knives left?
Wow. You know what? You're in luck.
There it is. Okay, you got a bolt?
It's not bolted in the other side yet.
Alright.
I think that'll help us.
Oh, this has got to go all the way, huh?
Yeah, I didn't find that.
There it is.
Find that group.
Yep. Okay.
Push it in. Okay, that's it. There you go.
Sick.
Sweet. Put it right in there.
Alright, I am finishing up just putting these dash trim pieces in. Put the cigarette lighter in there, and then we give these two bottom bolts under here one more double check and make sure that got it. Buzz it.
Alright, this is where Barb and us go our separate ways. Me and Coons are going to take this rig on our own out to the streets. No more safety vehicle. Barb's got to run. And then we're rock and rolling. Alright, buddy, we'll see you back in on coolants. I'm going to fill it up. We're going to hit the road and see how this thing drives. Otherwise, fluids look good. That one.
Is it pouring out on the ground?
Yeah. Right, it comes off the front of the cylinder heads and it connects to the upper part of your radiator to help keep everything cool and flow properly. Now, somehow they have originally the rear two are blocked off and then the front two flow coolant. They took two more of the rear block offs on the front, so there's no coolant flow through the top end, the very top end of these heads, which is a bummer and also a dumb idea. Yeah, that's not a great idea. In fact, the opposite of that, making all four corners bleed and flow coolant. That's a way better. Out, but the bottom line is, I gotta plug that. At least the whole coolant pressure. You can't just have a giant hole in your radiator. We did have a couple dudes that watch the channel pop by, and an old buddy that I had done a video with like 15 years ago stopped by. He said he's got to stop Manny. We are hunkered down now with our travel gear and on the tools we just bought. Those shoes that I have to show. You've seen it before. I'm driving already. How's that feel? A little different? A little different. A lot better. A lot different, yeah. Of course it's crooked as can be now, but that's fine. It's nice in here. Yeah. So far so good. We've gone like shop. It's finally stopped raining, and I want to take out the Camaro and have some fun with this. I know there's a lease ring, and there's a set of lease rings, so we're going to dig in there and see what's what. Loving this car. 55. In all 4 gears, and a decent driving car with an interior and a radio. Very solid buy. It's got all the after we fix it. Is this ready? Yeah, so it's already done. Rotors, calipers up front, but somehow they got worn pretty bad. And then the key. Second, let's have a look off the shocks yesterday. Alright, so what do we got? Ring. Not exactly what you want to keep the camera on with
wants more than guesswork. New. Check in an hour. See how they do. The fronts are smoked, dry rotted, cracked, all but we can't find anything local fresh. So we'll that's why they wear pads on elastic, like hard plastic or gel or whatever it is. It lets them move up and down more easily. So they can use plastic to do that. If we were the idea is just try to grab them in the middle like you're supposed to, but instead of rubber, we're going to use either metal or wood or there to match both. Alright, so I've got one shim in here, one here. Again, this is just going to take out side to side plate. Turn this thing forward. Connect them. Run them up and watch all our troubles go away. Front rotors, up the road. Alright, so now even though these front brakes look pretty new, they
Up one of the glaring issues that Tilly found on the road. They this is not how you so Seaboard kit that we had laying on the shelf. Get this I made some lines.
Alright, quick change of plans. I'm on a rescue mission to pick up Barb or bring him a bunch of supplies. He was going to run to shop 2 and grab a steam vent kit off of one of those industrial ones we had. And I was like, just drive to C3 and you can leave it there. That's where we store all of